Muslims criticize the Bible, and they say that it has changed countless times, it has been corrupted, it has been watered down, and it can't be trusted or relied on. In contrast, they say that the Quran, their holy book, is the perfect book, meaning it's a miracle from God because it has never changed, it has never been altered, and even down through the centuries it has remained the same, whereas the Bible has been corrupted. This just proves Islam. However, the only thing that this disproves is it's not true. This is the farthest thing from the truth. If you look at the different variations of the Quran, there are thousands of variations, and the Quran has had something that the Bible has never had. Satanic verses. You heard me right, satanic verses. Literally, there were satanic verses in the Quran. This alone proves that the Quran has changed. In fact, their founder, Muhammad, admitted that there were satanic verses. He admitted that he was duped by Satan. In other words, he thought it was God speaking to him, but it was Satan who was speaking to him. And those verses were in the Quran and had to be abrogated or replaced at a later date. The only problem is that scholars in Islam can't agree on how many verses should be abrogated. They can't agree on the subject. But we're going to see that some of the greatest biographers, the oldest historians, and Muslim scholars all say that this is a real event where Muhammad was duped by Satan. And we're going to go through some of these in a minute. Having satanic verses proves that the Quran was changed. It proves that it was never the same from beginning to end, and it stayed the same over the centuries. No, satanic verses alone prove that this is not true, not to mention that scholars in Islam admit to abrogations as well, that God said one thing here, but then he said another thing later. I guess similar to Mormonism, where God changes his mind, or, one thing is, revealed, but then maybe something deeper is revealed at a later date. But the problem is, these things show that it has not stayed the same. Now, the typical Muslim response is to say that Salman Rushdie invented this. He made it up in his novels, which were works of fiction. Is that true, though? It's partly true that he did write a novel series on the satanic verses, and it became quite popular, and it got a lot of popularity with it. But here's the thing. He didn't just make that up out of the blue. He got it, and he was analyzing and going over the sources. He was examining the concepts from Muslim scholars who talked about the satanic verses. So he was going over this subject, but he was examining the contexts that were already being taught and discussed by Muslim biographers and scholars and historians. And there lies the rub. That's the big problem for Islam, is that their own biographers, their earliest biographers, historians, and scholars, they admit that this really happened, that this was a real event, and they all admit that this was extremely well documented and can be trusted. So this actually happened, and we have some of their writings. We have books from some of their scholars, like this book on the life of Muhammad, which we'll talk about in a second. But these are some of the most authoritative and popular and well-trusted and well-respected scholars in Islam. And they're saying that it happened. So for all of the Muslims today who say, oh, it didn't really happen, people are lying, they're making it up, prove it to us. Go ahead and prove it. That's what Muslims always say to me when I discuss with them in person or online. We have discussions about this, and I bring this up, and they usually either run away and don't want to talk about it, or number two, they just say I'm lying and making it up, or number three, that they basically say, prove it. Come on, give us the evidence. So in this video, I'm going to give you the evidence, some of the evidence, there's a lot of evidence, but I'm going to give you the evidence that shows that this is true. Hi everyone, my name is Bryan Mercier, president of Catholic Truth. If you love our content, please subscribe and please support our ministry. We're a nonprofit 501c3 and we don't exist without you. Please consider giving monthly or yearly or a one-time donation. We would appreciate it. And if you would like to follow us on social media, feel free to do that below. So we're going to go through some of these sources. I'm not going, because the quotes are really long and would probably bore most people. We're only going to give the main highlights of some of these quotes, and they'll put them at the end of the video. So if people actually want to read the whole quotes for themselves, they can do that. But let's go through this first book by The Life of Muhammad by Alfred Guillaume, who is one of the oldest and most authoritative biographers on Muhammad. Another scholar, Ibn Ishaq, is an 8th century scholar and pretty much the preeminent and authoritative scholar and historian on Islam and the Prophet Muhammad. And he literally, personally collected the hadiths, the traditions of Islam, and brought them together. And this is why his work is probably the most important and authoritative work on the life of Muhammad. His work is the most renowned and quoted work and highly documented work of the ancient texts. So it doesn't get better than this or more credible than this. Listen to what he says. When the Quraysh, who were the pagans and the polytheists, heard that, they were delighted and greatly pleased at the way in which he spoke of their gods, and they listened to him. While the believers were holding that what their prophet brought from the Lord was true, not suspecting a mistake or a vain desire or slip. The polytheists of the Quraysh and others who were in the mosque prostrated when they heard the mention of their gods, and that their intercession was approved before God according to Muhammad. Then the angel Gabriel came to the apostle and said, "What have you done, Muhammad? You have read to these people something that I did not bring you from God, and you have said what he did not say." And the apostle was bitterly grieved and greatly distressed in fear of God. So God abrogated what Satan had suggested, and God established his verses. This is insane. This is saying that Muhammad actually mentioned, and I didn't read the whole quote, but he actually mentioned by name 3 of the gods of the Quraysh, Al-Lut, Al-Uzza, and Manat. So he mentioned their gods, and he said that their intercession was acceptable before God, before, well, what they believe as God, Allah. And when he prostrated, and this was in one of the verses of the Quran, then when they prostrated to worship God, the pagans worshiped God too, because they were delighted that Muhammad accepted their gods and said that they could intercede on their behalf to God. So this was a huge problem because other people were starting to question, and regular Muslims, because here's the thing, Muhammad had already condemned these false gods. Now all of a sudden he's accepting these false gods and saying it's okay. And I think personally he just wanted to win over these people, and so he kind of compromised. But a lot of his fellow Muslims were saying, wait, this isn't right. This isn't anything that you've taught us. In fact, you've preached everything to the opposite. Then suddenly, Angel Gabriel came to him and said, you preached something from Satan. It needs to be removed. We're going to put in God's true verses. And you are speaking things that are not from God. So again, big problem. Shahab Ahmed is another prominent Muslim scholar on this topic. Listen to what he says. The Satanic Verses incident constituted a standard element in the historical memory of the Muslim community in the first 150 years of Islam, and was recorded by almost all prominent scholars working in these intellectual fields. They were being transmitted in almost every important intellectual center. We have repeatedly dated the reports of the Satanic Verses incident to the 1st and early 2nd centuries. In other words, to what seems to have been the earliest period of systematic collection and organization of historical memory materials in the Muslim community. Wow. I mean, that says it all. I mean, these prominent scholars saying pretty much every scholar and every school of thought was saying that this was authentic, that's saying it's real, it's saying that it actually happened. So for all the Muslims today who are trying to explain it away, trying to insult the actual scholars and historians and everyone else just because they don't want to hear something bad, that's a problem. Because there are many other scholars too that we could have listed. I mean, there's many scholars that I have listed here, like Al-Tabari, Abi Hatim, and many more. But I think Samuel Green kind of debates on this topic, but he says something very interesting, that during the time or shortly after this, many people wanted to protect Muhammad. They didn't want people to be scandalized by his claiming to be from God and claiming to hear things from God, but really sometimes they're from Satan. So they just started omitting that part and saying, oh, well, we're not either going to talk about it, and then not wanting to talk about it turned into it's not true. So listen to what he says. Muhammad modified it or deleted so many verses that it made people doubt he was even a genuine prophet, and the issue had to be dealt with in the Quran. And when we exchange a verse in place of another verse, and God knows very well that he is sending down, they say to Muhammad, you are a mere forger. He also knows that Ibn Ishaq wrote one of the early accounts of the Satanic Verses, but that one of his students, Ibn Hisham, wanted to cover up these mistakes of their prophet. So he wrote his own account of Muhammad's life, and he explains his methodology, quote, God willing, I shall begin this book of the prophet's biography by omitting some of the things which Ibn Ishaq has recorded in his book, things which are disgraceful to discuss, matters which would distress certain people. So he might have had good intentions to not want to shock people, not want to scandalize people, but then something that actually is true and that actually happened was omitted. And if people do that long enough, then it just becomes not true to many people because they're not learning the real story. They're not hearing the true story. So it started early on, this revisionist history, this historical cover-up. But it really did happen. It really is true. And it shows that the Quran was not the perfect book that Muslims tried to make it to be. In fact, if you look at the early variations of Islam, we'll do a whole nother video on this, but just briefly, if you look at the different variations, if you look at just 3 variations, Masud, Ka'b, and Zaid, just those, there are literally thousands of variations between these textual translations. Some of these texts have more surahs, which are like verses in scripture, in the Bible, and some of them have less. Some include things that others don't. It's literally, you can't say that they're all the same because they're not. Masud himself included the charm verses, whereas Ubay included them. But there are literally thousands of variations among the early texts of the Quran and many, many different traditions and hadiths and things that surrounded this. Again, we're going to make a whole video on that, but just to let you know that when Muslims say that the Bible has been watered down, the Bible has been corrupted, the Bible can't be trusted, maybe it's the other way around. Or at least, even if it's not the other way around, you can't, as we say here in America, a person who lives in a glass house shouldn't throw stones at other people. If you have problems in your house, you don't throw stones at other people in their glass house. So bottom line is, they're claiming one thing against Christians, just trying to insult and devalue Christianity and especially the Bible, all while they have the same problems. And we're not even saying these problems and their accusations of the Bible are true. We're just saying that even if they are true, they struggle with the same thing and with something that we've never had, Satanic Verses, where their own founder was deceived by Satan. That can't be said in Christianity. Jesus was not, deceived by Satan, and neither have been our prophets. So bottom line is, what they say about Christianity most of the time isn't true, and it's not backed up by facts. And what they say about the Quran many times is not true and is often not backed up by facts. And this is what we need to know when we want to discuss with Muslims, so we can give them the truth that hopefully will open their eyes and begin to set them free. If you like this video, please share it with others and help get the truth out there. And if you like this video, please do us a favor and actually like it and leave a comment down below, because these things help to make the video more popular so more people will see them and we can get this truth out there. And if you would like a Catholic speaker, we'd be happy to come to your church, your parish, your group. Check out our website at catholictruth.org. Feel free to follow our social media below. We have 10 social media platforms, and if you don't follow us, we would love you to. We would love to give you daily inspiration and apologetics, spirituality, and just general culture war. Finally, if you would like to support our ministry, our nonprofit, please jump on board and help us make an impact, reaching Jehovah's Witnesses, reaching Muslims, reaching Mormons, reaching different religions, and helping them bring them back home to the one true faith that Jesus Christ the Lord started, Lord of heaven and earth, the one who has brought us the fullness of truth from God, that doesn't need help from other religions, doesn't need aiding or correcting or fixing. Jesus is the fullness of truth, and he brought that truth, and anything that contradicts it is not, in fact, true. Thanks so much, everybody, for watching, and God bless you.